I entered a small Pokémon Champions tournament wherein the rules explicitly said we had to bring a non-hyper-competitive gimmick team, and I lost. I first learned competitive Pokémon to play single battles in Pokémon X, and then I basically stopped using these skills until Pokémon Champions came out. And I know it is bad because I put it through ranked matches to practice with and refine it. And let me tell you, whereas I was skeptical of players claiming there were bot matches in ranked, I quickly realized with this team that they were right. Actual players do not let me set up. I know some people think they're the ones being mistaken for bots, trust me on this. Bots have a consistently absurd behavior to them. But it is a funny team, so let me tell you about it. I call this team Discharge after the electric special move that targets all the Pokémon on the field at the same time. Jolteon and Emolga have it. Jolteon is the only Pokémon in the game that can have the ability Volt Absorb, which nullifies damage or status targeting it before hitting 1/4 of its HP. Emolga is the only Pokémon that can have Motor Drive, which does the same thing as Volt Absorb, but instead of hitting it, it boosts its speed by 1 stage. Put them together on the field and they can click Discharge safely, and with 80 power and 100% accuracy, it is a decent move. Until you factor the decrease in power from multi-targeting. It is not good. Jolteon is the core of the team, in no small part for how crucial Volt Absorb is to lengthening the amount of discharges I can click. They also have Electric Terrain, which prevents sleeping, but more importantly, boosts electric type attacks by 30%. Jolteon and Emolga also have Rising Voltage, which doubles in power in electric terrain, making it as strong as a super effective move. The problem is that Jolteon is trained in HP and defense to make the most out of Volt Absorb, and because it's the only one who can set up the terrain. So electric terrain Rising Voltage from Jolteon does not hit hard. It holds a Shuka Berry which softens ground type moves, and it can actually tank a single one. Not 2 though, so if the opponent clicks 2 Earthquakes, it's dead. Jolteon is not a tanky Pokemon. Thankfully, ground type moves are not an issue for Emolga, which is electric and flying type. It is trained in special attack and speed to take advantage of the boost from Motor Drive, making its Rising Voltage much more effective than Jolteon's. It also has Air Slash, which covers 4 grass Pokemon that electricity doesn't work well against, and has a chance to flinch the target. I also gave it Volt Switch for the rare times that I can read No Protect and I need Emolga out. I say rare because if Emolga is on the field, I either need it to sweep or it dies. It is a very frail Pokemon. Ice moves body it easily. Mega Frostlass is faster, oh no! I wish I could give it a different ability. More on that later. But it can't sit on the field long enough for that. I think given its speedy and frail build, normally you would give it a Focus Sash to hang on after a strong attack, or a Choice Scarf to make it faster. I did not want it to be locked to single move because switching it would nullify its speed boost. Instead I gave it the Shell Bell, which heals a fraction of the damage inflicted. And honestly it did come clutch a few times. Probably still a bad idea. There is another ability that absorbs electric moves, Lightning Rod. It nullifies any single target electric move and boosts the user's special attack by 1 stage. In the case of a multi-target, it would not nullify and would simply not take the damage, much like the other abilities aforementioned. There are a few Pokemon that can have it, like Manectric, we can also learn Discharge, but I wanted a Pokemon that did not have the same weaknesses as Jolteon, so I opted for Rhyperior. Now, Rhyperior is a ground and rock type, so it was already immune to electric moves, but it also learns Supercell Slam, a physical electric move with 100 power and 95% accuracy. I'll admit that I had misread on Bulbapedia and thought it affected the whole field like Discharge, but no, it's a single target move. Still, it is very strong compared to the other electric moves I have, with an additional 20% boost from its magnet, with the drawback being that Rhyperior would lose half of its max HP if the move were to fail. I did not actually use that move a lot and was lucky enough that I didn't see it ever fail an accuracy check, but I did see it hit a Protect. That was rough. Speaking of rough, Rhyperior is kind of not. I trained it in HP and attack, but its special defense is too low. And Ground Rock is a really bad type defensively. Mega Frostlass is basically not threatened. Worse, Water and Grass type moves erase it with a 4 times weakness. It is too slow to hit Paraffin before dying. I don't even know what Sinistcha would do to it. I can't even run Earthquake on it with Jolteon and others potentially being there. I think that's the reason we don't see that guy often. Oh yeah, this last note is a skill issue, but Lightning Rod works great with Discharge, but will undo Rising Voltage or Volt Switch if I'm not careful, which has happened a few times. So I said Jolteon is the core of the team, and it is true, and I did open every match with it. But the real start of the team was actually the move Skill Swap, which exchanges abilities between the user and the target. There are a lot of Pokemon that can learn it, but not all of them have an ability worth giving. I initially tried Alolan Raichu, but eventually phased it out. First off, I was stupid and thought that it could learn Lightning Rod. Great! But Alolan Raichu can't have it, only the Cantonian form, and Surge Surfer does not help unleash Discharge. Second, since it already had to set up with Skill Swap, I also wanted it to have Electric Terrain, committing to sitting on the field as a support. Its speed was nice to swap fast, but it's way too frail for the role. In my experience, it would just die within 2 turns. Instead, let's talk about Chime Echo. Specifically, it is Mega Chime Echo, whose Mega gives it a huge boost in bulk, and a Steel type which is good defensively. It still keeps its Psychic type, so it is vulnerable to Ghost and Dark type moves. Not to worry, it is trained in bulk, HP and then defense and special defense equally, so it can take a few hits. Its Steel type should make it weak to Ground type, which pose a problem to my Electric team, but it has the ability Levitate, making it immune to ground moves. It is a great ability to have on a Steel Pokemon, but with Skill Swap, I can also give it to Jolteon, making it have no weaknesses and get Volt Absorb in exchange. If I'm feeling smart, I can also delay the Mega, give Levitate to Jolteon, and then Mega the next turn so I can have full ground immunity. It's difficult. Non-Mega Chime Echo is too frail to be the default state. In both states, it's slow, so a Garchomp Earthquake will hit Jolteon before a Skill Swap. It has knockoff to remove opponent items, and Heal Pulse to heal half an ally's HP, so I'm counting it to be support. But I wanted it specifically to use Flash Cannon, a Steel type move, as a hard check on Frostlass. And oh, it's a defensive build. It can't do damage. Not a problem, my other Skill Swapper is there to cover. Oh. Well, here is Cofagrigus, who is very bulky, trained in HP and special defense, although I gave it the nature to boost its defense. It's a bad choice, but I'm trying to cover for both physical and special here. Its Ghost typing helps avoid normal type moves, and with both Protect and Leftovers, it's there to stick on the field, ideally with Volt Absorb. If you're a competitive player, you already know that just being on the field is not helpful, and you're right. Cofagrigus' only mean of harm is Dark Pulse, not a Ghost move because I don't want to be in a situation where it can't click attacks, but consequently, it basically does no damage. Still, I put Cofagrigus early in the team building because of its ability Mummy. If you've never faced a Grigus, a Pokemon that uses a contact move on a Pokemon with Mummy will have its ability overwritten to be Mummy. It is very funny. It is definitely very potent, but this is not a Mummy team, it's a Discharge team. So more often than not, it is Jolteon who gets Mummy through Skill Swap, and if Jolteon passes Mummy to an opponent, it is probably not living much longer. Anyway, the last move is Mean Look, which prevents opposing Pokemon from switching out. Except if they're Ghosts, or if they have a move for it, like Paraffin's Flip Turn, or Incineroar's Parting Shot. But other than that, it is a situation where I'm trapped with them instead, what with the Grigus can do no damage situation. But I swear, it has a reason to be there. Araquanid has the move Soak. It overrides the target's typing to be water. So, on electric terrain, on an opponent that's soaked, trapped so it can't undo the soaking, Rising Voltage can basically do infinite damage. Anyway, it also has Entrainment, which overrides the target's ability with Araquanids. So, Chameko can get Volt Absorb, then Jolteon switches out to Araquanid and Echo gives Volt Absorb to Araquanid, who can then copy Volt Absorb and give it back to Echo. What? Araquanid is meant to be bulky. It is trained in HP defense and special defense and holding a citrus berry, which after its HP go down below half its max, heals for a quarter of it. I want it on the field to soak, but it has come clutch with Liquidation a few times. I also gave it Bug Buzz to check dark types. And that was a team! I built it for the tourney, which has now passed, so I probably will never touch it again. I did cross the threshold to Ultra Ball rank somehow, like right before the tourney, and I told myself I'd do a Metronome team if I got there, because you can't downrank from Ultra Ball to Great Ball, but Metronome is not allowed, so that might be the end of Champions for me. Some final notes: although Discharge is a giveaway for what to expect, my team name is not visible in ranked matches. Pokemon names are, so I had to hold back on naming Jolteon Jolt Absorb, instead naming it Yummy, and Araquanid is named Splish. I did not give any name to the rest.
Hi, Seri from the editing room here. I played a bit more Pokémon Champions to capture some footage, and I found that my Rhyperior actually had a name. He's named Alt, after the Miku song by Supercell. Okay, bye.
If you wanted to know some specific matchups, I've got a whole other video for you. I kind of just hit record and talked about it without a script, so it is very different, but if you're interested, I will put the link in the description.